Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Yay. So happy to be with you here today with our friend Marina from Heart Centered Tarot. We have Val from Dragonfly Crystals and Next Level Channeling, and Shari, who I believe you were on last night, weren't you, Shari? After the
yes,
Shari
I was with Helen and Denise.
Okay, all right.
Post debate.
Yes. Post debate.
It was a lot of fun.
I bet it was. Yes. I bet it was.
And then after I got through, I went back and watched Marina and David's.
And David's, yeah.
Because they were on too. But
it was very interesting. I was telling the ladies that, of course, you know about the handshake. Kamala went to him and shook his hand. And this morning, down at Ground Zero for the 9/11 memorial service, we had Schumer, Kamala, Joe, Bloomberg. Rudy wasn't there. I just thought of that. Trump and Vance. And there were people calling out, but one of the people said, "Where you been for the last 20 years, Donald?" And I thought that was interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But he went and shook her hand again right in front of Joe Biden. And he's like, I think he finds her attractive. I really do.
Yeah.
I think there's some of that. Yeah.
He's attracted to her. He's intrigued by her, and he's repulsed all at the same time.
Yeah. You couldn't even look at her. It's like,
no, I know. Yeah. That was really weird. Yeah.
It was like watching an 11-year-old trying to not look at his crush.
Yes, like that.
Yes, right. Absolutely. Yeah. You're right. And I did hear this, that since Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala, that, it was 306,000 earlier, so 337 as of 2 p.m. Eastern time. And so, we'll get, she's getting out the vote. And Trump first said,
and just think, if all her people who register, if they all just give $5 to Kamala's campaign, how much money that's going to be? That's going to just wipe a lot of people,
including him. He said, she's going to lose people because there's Republicans that are Swift fans, and he said, I like Brittany Mahomes better.
Brittany Mahomes joined Taylor Swift in supporting.
I thought she didn't. I thought she was voting for him. I thought that's
what I read something earlier today that said
maybe Taylor she changed her mind.
And Brittany, I don't even know who Brittany, whoever is. I mean,
she's the wife of one of
one of the other players.
Players.
Kelsey's friend. Yeah. Anyway.
I mean, the right's already upset that Taylor and her Swifties are ruining football because of course, Taylor's boyfriend. She's got all these Swifties who are now interested in football and trying to figure out how does the game work, and they're watching the game. They're going to the games, and so they're ruining football because they're
going to ruin NASCAR
time, effort,
soon.
and money into it.
Yeah. So NASCAR will be ruined really soon, and so will WWE. Because that's what
one could only hope.
No offense to anybody that really loves that. There's people I know on both sides that like it. So Barbara's here this afternoon, and Juanita, it's nice to see you. Jen Bowles, Christine Fryer, Rossi, as you saw, butterflies are free. Judy's here, Laura Hammond Davis, and who else is here? Motivational Monday, Maureen D'Amico, and Charlie C, Sage of Fire, and Anna Grenage. Welcome. Let's see, who else is here? Probably a lot more people that I'm missing. No intention to miss you. Yeah. Create Love Diana. Thank you. Whoops. I thought I just lost everybody. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes. And Monique from New Brunswick, I believe. And Roots and Waves. Hi, Ann. Yes. Awesome.
Oh, and we dodged a very serious bullet today.
Yes, you did.
Hurricane Francine.
Right.
moved up and became a Cat 2 just before she made landfall. But because of the wind shears coming in from the west, it kind of pushed her over so that she went in between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. So we're getting the wider bands of rain that are coming through and stuff with thunderstorms, but we didn't get the winds, at least not yet. They may still show up, but she made landfall about 2 hours ago. And I was watching local
I
news,
have to say,
they have people down there in Houma and Morgan City, and it was like, holy crap, man.
I bet it was.
I'm so glad it moved west, east. I mean, that would have been us.
So, Shari, it's a good thing Trump wasn't president, because he would have moved it over further, and then you would have been hit. Remember when he did that?
With the Sharpie, hey?
It would have been a bullseye. I mean, what can I say?
I have my Sharpie close at hand just in case I need to change history.
There you go. There you go. So,
there you go.
Seriously, though, I'm glad that you dodged a bullet. I hope the people in the path of the storm are all okay. And
unfortunately, the area that's getting hit is the last several fairly rough hurricanes that we've had come through have hit that area. And they're very low-lying parishes down there. They're like right at or below sea level.
Oh,
they're right in the marsh, in the at the Gulf. And so, they're already getting 6 to 8 feet storm surge and flash flooding. I mean, that's more water than my height, than I am tall.
Sure.
That's a foot to 3 feet above me. Deep with water. So
there was something else though that just happened. It was yesterday or the day before. There was a 650-foot wave that hit Greenland, and it shifted all kinds of stuff in the rest. It was like a tsunami, and I mean, I just read it today on
they were calling it a rogue wave, or else it was an underwater earthquake that caused a tsunami. They didn't register an earthquake. Now that may have changed since I read about it earlier.
Wow.
Right.
But and
I know these hurricanes, their paths. They say that when you make a path in a certain direction, that sometimes it picks it back up again. I don't know if that's true. I'm not a weather person, but
a hurricane spins counterclockwise. And so the northeast quadrant is always the worst of the storm, because that's what's sucking the water and dumping the water directly onto the land. And then it comes around, and when you're on the northwest quadrant, you're mainly getting the winds and or tornadoes that come with it. And the eye of the storm is the highest winds, which were registered at 100 miles per hour with Francine. And that's sustained winds. That's not a gust. That's sustained winds. And that rips your roof off, that relocates your vehicle. I mean,
sure, of course.
It's amazing.
It relocates your vehicle.
When Hurricane Camille hit in 1969, now granted, she was a Category 5, but in 1969, we moved to Northwest Florida 2 weeks before Camille hit. And once they opened the highway back up for people to travel back and forth again, all of these old, beautiful plantation homes that lined the coastline, half of them were gone. And half of what was left was just ripped apart. But there were like full-size fishing trawlers in people's front yards. Parked halfway in their house that got pushed in. There were houses, because back then a lot of homes were built up off the ground, especially down here because of flooding. There were houses that were like 2 blocks down the road, because they literally got washed off their pilings and just floated with the water.
Floated away.
Went down the road, So it can do a lot of devastating damage and something like that. And when it hits, they were saying it wasn't going to hit until later today. So everybody was trying to prepare for a nightfall landing, which is a whole lot worse because you can't see what's coming. as opposed to when it's still daylight, but it hit around 5 o'clock. So 4:30, 5 o'clock, right in that area.
Wow.
And I just feel sorry
we'll continue
for
to send
Terrebonne
prayers
Parish and
out
the other
for
parishes.
those people in that area. Yeah. We'll send out our prayers and hopes that everybody's okay.
I think it was Terrebonne Parish were in the middle of having all of their levees redone because they finally got the infrastructure money in that our very Republican senator who crossed the aisle to get that money for us. As they've been dispersing.
Cassidy do that?
Yeah.
Was it Cassidy?
Yeah, it was Cassidy. He's the doctor.
Yeah.
So
I do that.
He has a little bit more of a humanitarian.
Sometimes he's reasonable. Yes, sometimes he's reasonable.
Yes. Right. Sometimes it's his brain actually engages. But so I don't remember if it was Terrebonne Parish or the one next to it. They were like halfway into the process of redoing all their levees. So there's a good chance that it'll be a lot worse.
I wonder if they could come up with a better system than the levee system.
Yeah,
not when you're below sea level.
It's so under the sea level that's the problem.
Yeah,
it's a hard problem.
That's why it's so hard.
They could build a wall. Maybe
you got just like in New Orleans, you got the Mississippi River on one side, the Gulf of Mexico on another side, and Lake Pontchartrain on the like a triangle.
Yeah.
You got the river, the lake, and the ocean. New Orleans doesn't stand a chance. It's like 5-10 feet below sea level.
Right.
They're just a big giant bowl,
Yeah. That's impossible to fence off.
And Katrina did so much devastation because their levees were falling apart. And they had been warning them for 50 plus years that hey, you got to fix this, because Katrina didn't hit New Orleans. It hit Mississippi. New Orleans just got the aftermath.
I was there just after Katrina, and I have to say, New Orleans really got hit. And if it wasn't the actual center of it, I mean, the devastation for Mississippi.
The center went in right around Pascagoula, right in that area of Mississippi is where the center went with Katrina. If I'm remembering the right hurricane. New Orleans, it was they got the winds coming around, which was blowing the water off the Lake Pontchartrain, sucking up more water from the Gulf and bringing it back around, and their levees just gave. So you had all the water damage, and then you had all the high wind damage. Because as those winds come around, there's still high winds. I mean, we had to clear everything off the patio. It's all sitting in the living room right now, because it's too dangerous to leave anything sitting out.
Sure.
Well, not only that, it could become a projectile and go through somebody's window or car windshield.
That's true. So today we're gonna talk about memories. Number one. And there was something recently that I saw that blew my mind, and I should have realized it to begin with, but for some reason it just hit me. And it was the fact that the things that we remember that become part of our memories are done in times when we are fully present. And so this might be why we don't remember what we ate yesterday, but we can remember our high school graduation or our dance we went to or whatever it is. And it's very interesting to me because I've always had, except for as I'm getting older, but I've always had the memories and would bring up the memories all the time. And some of my high school friends would say, how did you remember that? And I didn't realize that it must have been because I was fully present. So I think that's what blew my mind the most. But it's today down, they were in Shanksville. They were down at 9/11. I don't know if they went to the Pentagon, but I imagine somebody did and did because they always do that every year. And today we had all the leaders, quote leaders, down there. Kamala got another handshake, isn't she lucky? But Joe was there. Joe spoke, and Joe, people were saying, Donald, I think at the time he said he had people he knew in there or something like that, or he lost people that were friends of his. Not true.
He doesn't have any friends.
Yeah. So his memory is not very good. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
But I got to thinking that it would be really nice to talk about a memory that most of us have shared. And I'm finding now when I talk about it in class with my students, I don't get anybody that was alive then. So it's very interesting how that time goes by. The other night, I watched an article, a TV show about the children of the firefighters that had died during 9/11. And I saw that they're firefighters now, women and men, and they're in their 20s, late 20s, 30s, whatever. So today seemed like an appropriate day to maybe talk about this memory. Everybody seems to remember what they were doing on that day and how that impacted them. I can say that probably Val and I remember when JFK died that day. You do too, Marina? Okay. I remember coming.
That.
You remember it even as a little girl?
I was little, but I didn't understand what it was or what was happening. But okay. I can remember seeing my mother, my grandmother, and my grandmother's housekeeper sitting on the floor in front of the TV, just hysterically crying and not understanding what was wrong. And just that's basically my memory of it, because I'm the same age as John Jr. So.
Yes. Who?
Yeah.
Right. I'll never forget that little John Jr. at the funeral cortege. So I'm going to open it up and let Marina talk. And if you want to share your things that were going on in the chat, we'd love to see what you were doing on 9/11/01. It did start as a beautiful day in New York City, as far as I could see. And we can talk a little bit about how we experienced this and work through it. So Marina,
I was, as it was happening, I was actually on the phone with a friend from New York City.
Wow.
We were chatting the fact that upcoming weekend I was going to fly out to New York City for a few days.
Oh my, Marina, I got the chills. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was probably 7:30 in the morning, and we were on the phone. I was getting ready for work. I worked at the city at the time, and sort of in the middle of our conversation, he said, "Oh, hold on," and I could hear somebody yelling something in the background. And he said, "Oh shit, something's happening at the World Trade Center. I got to go. I'll talk to you later." I said, "Oh, okay, whatever. I mean, it could be anything." So I got dressed. I walked to the bus stop and got on the bus and got into the city. And when I walked in, especially in our department, there wasn't the usual number of people that were around, and people weren't where they were supposed to be. And of course, back then, your cell phone was something that you used.
Flip phone.
Right?
Yeah.
Flip phone. Yeah. You didn't use it the way you do today. So I kind of walked in, and I was walking down this corridor. It was a route march to get to where my desk was. And all of a sudden, I noticed that there was a bunch of people outside one of the manager's rooms. Okay, something's going on. So as I got closer, everybody was in there. They had the TV turned on, and you could see the flames and things coming off of the first tower. And it was like, oh my God, what happened? What? And so people are saying, there was an attack on the World Trade Center. And the first thing that I thought of was, oh shit, okay, that's what they were talking about when I was on the phone with Steve. That's what holy crap, what's going on? So the rest of the morning, the rest of the day, very little got done.
I believe that.
Very little. Because everybody was glued to their TV. there was the department that I worked in was inspections. So people would call in, builders and whatnot, to set up appointments for whether, framing inspection, whatever it was. It was silent. It was deadly silent. And
were you in Nova Scotia then, or in Alberta?
No. I was in Calgary. Yeah,
I was in Calgary
at that time. Yeah.
Okay.
And there was, it was silent, and there was towards the early part of the afternoon here, that there was some people were saying about us going home early, and that downtown wanted to be shut down early, because if this was an attack on New York, that they might attack some of the other oil centers. And Calgary is an oil center. We're like the Houston of the North.
Yeah.
So it was, even though we were miles removed from what was going on, it affected everybody here.
Wow, that's surprising.
That's all people could talk about.
It is surprising, isn't it?
Oh my God. Yeah. Literally glued to the TV, watching what happened, and just feeling overwhelmed with what we were seeing. And the news that was coming out.
Such an interesting perspective to have all of that from a Canadian who was on with a friend in New York at the time.
On the phone. Yeah. Needless to say, I did not make that trip. But
right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Marina, that's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. I'm just going to share this one. Celtic says, I was on the phone with my old boss telling to get a cab back home as she came out of the subway to head to the World Trade Center. It was mayhem. I stayed talking to her till she was in the taxi.
Oh my God.
There were a lot of near misses that day. There were a lot of near misses. Yes. I do have some other ones, but I'm going to intersperse them with us talking. So Val, what were you up to?
Yeah, mine was pretty interesting. So, I belonged to a group, a metaphysical group, and this person was a channeler, and she channeled for the group. And one of my dear friends who worked with me at the time in San Francisco happened to be in the same group. And this channeler told her privately, something's going to happen on 9/11. You're probably not going to want to go to work. And so she, called in sick, or told me the day before she wasn't going to come in. And I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stick up. And then I said, oh, never mind. I'm just going to go. So I got on the road like 5 a.m. I had to take the train over BART under the tube to get into the city. And I noticed I was feeling funny, like something's up, that funny energy.
Yes.
Yep.
And so it's very early in the morning. It's 5:30. I'm getting on the train. I was supposed to be to work at 7. So all these things are happening, but the traffic's light. Everything's light. And normally, even at that hour, it's heavy. I get in, and the whole entire floor was almost completely empty, except for me and the CEO. Or actually, was it the chief financial officer, actually.
CFO.
The CEO was
the CFO.
So the CFO, it was the chief financial officer and I. And he was an executive officer, but he and I were the only two, and then it happened. And I had the feeling that something was going to happen. Obviously, it's in front of you. You can feel the energy coming in. And found out the next day, after I had to take a ferry home and all of this stuff, I had to go across the bay. I couldn't take, the tube back or do any of that. So, needless to say, I talked to my friend the next day who got the channeled information that I didn't know about. And she said that they were supposed to hit San Francisco as well. But what happened is they caught some of the people didn't get through their security
check-in. Yeah.
And that's how there were a few cities that were a few other big cities that were going to be hit as well. And they didn't make it through for the San Francisco one. So that's why I didn't get in trouble. And I was in the financial district.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would
That's where they were hitting.
Right in the heart of the financial
And don't
district.
they have like World Trade in Chicago and World Trade in other big places? They have the name of it.
Do.
They have one in Dallas, I think.
They would hit all the financial
all the
centers.
financial
And I
World
was
Trade.
in the financial center.
Yeah.
I worked for a civil engineering firm. And so there it was. Boom. It would have been struck. So I realized, you know, it wasn't for me. It wasn't going to happen to me. It wasn't in my, it wasn't written in the stars for me. But I found out all of this later. So I thought that was pretty interesting. My experience of being like, I'm, you know, here with my boss. No one came into work. What would they have known that no one came into work? They all came in before 9 o'clock. Why weren't they there? I mean, think, you know.
Yeah, I get it.
They were 9 o'clock in New York. What was the time that they hit? 9? Was it 9 or 10?
Yeah, it was like, there was one, I think, at 8:58 or something. And then there was one at 9 something.
Is like, okay, I should have known at 5 in the morning. Had I turned on my radio.
Yep.
I should have known about it before I went. So this is how they didn't come in. But I didn't know about it. So that's how I ended up in there. But they would have hit San Francisco as well.
Probably hit
but
you.
they got stopped you know, through security. They had a whole bunch of them lined up. And as you know, they couldn't hit the Pentagon that they were headed for. That one plane. Because the brave
ready to roll
board stopped.
Right. Shanksville. Yeah, absolutely. He was from, actually, he's from my area. They have a high school, Todd Beamer High School was named after him. He was the one that said, let's roll. And interesting. Yeah. So James woke up Chrissy in Townsville at 5 a.m. and said, turn the telly on, a plane has hit the World Trade Center. They were watching it. And this would have been in Australia. So you can see how wide, and I got the chills again. It's like everybody was riveted onto, thanks, Chrissy, for telling. And I have some other, let me do another one here. You're a New Yorker artist, Liz, and you never forget it. I was in college class when the announcement came over. The professors let us go home, and I went to college. Good for you, Liz. I mean, I'm going to tell you where I was, and it was something similar to that. So yeah, I agree. My son was in high school. He was a junior in high school, and they let him go home as well. So
my boss and I left, needless to say, like by 11 or 11:30, we were already packing up to go catch the ferry home, or he didn't have to take a ferry. He lived in, well, actually, I don't know how he got home, because he lived in, he would have had to go across the Golden Gate Bridge. So
he might have had a hotel room that night.
He lived in Atherton.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Maureen says she was in Annapolis when the plane hit the Pentagon. Her heart broke because her brother was supposed to be there, and I thought he was at the Pen. Oh my God, I can't imagine. My son was in Boston when the Boston bomber blew up the. And he wasn't near it, but he could have been. You know, you think about those things.
Yes, you think about those things. Absolutely, you do. And I thought about, wow, isn't it my luck that they got stopped through security and couldn't get through?
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
Or
you dodged a bullet. Yeah, you dodged a bullet. Motivational money. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's really interesting is, I mean, some of the things that we witnessed across or on the TV, people jumping out of buildings,
the noise of them hitting,
noise that is something that I will never ever forget. I was also struck by, as bad and as awful as this was, I was struck by the fact that it could have been a lot worse, but there was an unusually large number of people who called in sick that day.
Or they were taking some of them were taking their kids to the first day of school, is what I heard.
Yeah.
Right. And so they were coming in late that day.
Right.
Yeah.
And in New York, it was election day.
Yes.
A lot of people were going in late to work because they were going to vote.
Going in to do that. Sure. So Motivational Monday was only 5, sitting in front of the TV at my aunt's house, not really knowing what's happening. Also Motivational Monday, they probably didn't want you to know too much, because there was so much, to make children fearful, that people were like not allowing their kids to watch the television at the time.
Yes.
So
right.
Rossi had
it was the first time, Aley, that we had domestic terrorism.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not domestic terrorism like it's our terrorism.
Right. Here on our territory.
Having somebody come from the outside and do something so big made us all rattled to where we didn't feel safe.
Sure it did. Yeah,
so
it did.
Huge.
And I remember some Israeli friends that I had that said, "What's the big deal? This is every day in our world." And I thought, OMG,
that's an everyday thing.
It's an everyday thing. So Rossi's cousin was going to be working.
And take these things.
Thanks for sharing, everyone. We'll do a couple more. But Shari, I'll let you talk about what was going on in your world at that time.
I was in my last semester at college.
Okay.
And I had a geology test, geography test. No, geology test for rocks and stuff at 7:30 that morning, Central Time. It took me 20 minutes to take the test. It was an easy little test. I took the test, I got in the car and had to go pick up a prescription at the drugstore. And when I got to the drugstore, they had a big TV sitting up by the counter. And there was a group of people standing there watching. And I remember walking over thinking, what's going on? And I saw the second plane go in. And I thought, holy crap. I mean, it just, boom, and somebody said, they already hit the first tower. And I was shocked. I didn't know what to think. I mean, we were all just standing there watching. And then when they came, they fell down. It was like, oh, holy crap. This is serious.
Sure.
I just remember going back to campus because I didn't know where to go or what to do.
Yeah.
And I had, it took me like 3-4 semesters on a waiting list to get into a sociology class I wanted to get. And I managed to get in my last semester. And it was Death and Dying. Was
perfect
the name of the
class for you to take that term. Wow.
And my husband had just died several months before. He had died in February of 2001. And so I got to class thinking, I wonder if anyone's going to show up. The room was filled. Everybody was there. The teacher got there a little late, thinking she was just going to put a note up on the door and say, class canceled. And we were all there. And she was like, y'all don't have to be here. And we're like, this is why we take it to class. Because of what happened today.
Yeah.
And one of the young ladies in the class, she was a twin. Her sister was doing an internship and was working in the second tower hit. Their offices faced the first tower. They saw what happened. And their boss said, get out now. Everybody get your stuff. We're going to go down the street, go have coffee or something until we find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Even though they were being told, stay in your areas, blah, 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 blah. They all left. They got about 3 blocks down when their building got hit. And they would have been about 7 floors above
Oh,
they would have all been dead then.
They never would have gotten out
Never
because
would've
no
gotten
one
out.
above that area got
There
out.
were a lot of supervisors and managers
And-
that told their people to stay in place, right, Shari? So
There were well, there
Yes.
were announcements going on the loudspeakers
On the speaker.
in the hallways and stuff, telling people to remain in their office where it was safe and secure.
Yeah.
not
It's like,
not
I'll never do that again.
Always trust your gut.
She
Trust
was
your
talking
gut
about
every single
that,
time.
yes.
Yeah.
and she knew it that early in the day because when they got to the little coffee shop, their boss, got them all there. And of course, people are running in trying to get away from all the debris that was coming down.
Yes.
And they were trying to make a phone call to call home. And whoever the cafe owner was letting everybody use their landline to make quick calls home to let people know they were okay. And the two girls, their grandmother had raised them. Their mother had abandoned them when they were born. And the grandmother was raising them. And she managed to get in touch with her grandmother to say, I'm out. I'm safe. We're blocks down the road. We're just going to wait until we can leave to go back to the hotel where they put us up at.
Yeah.
And of course, the grandmother immediately called the sister to tell her, you almost lost your twin, and just her sharing that in that class was it hit all of us in such a way, I think.
Oh, of course it did, because you all had your own personal
loss. It could have been a personal loss. The whole class was feeling it, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
right.
My aunt, the one that lived in Houston, she did real estate. She was an insurance and underwriter, a mortgage underwriter. And she worked like independently for Wells Fargo. And she would go from place to place to place. They would stay 3 to 6 weeks, do up a bunch of mortgages, and then leave. And we just knew she was in New York. We didn't know where she was. And all I could think of is she's somewhere where they're doing mortgage underwriting. And I'm thinking the Towers.
Yeah, sure.
Fortunately, she was actually in Rochester. She was nowhere near New York City. But there was 2 days when
most of us have some association with New York. I really do believe.
Yeah.
Or some person or
my mother was in panic mode because she couldn't reach her.
Sure.
And the thing of it is I had flown just the weekend before and gone to Nashville for a conference. And when I got at the airport to leave home, when I got there, I walked up to the counter and just said, I'm Shari Hinkle, da-da-da, I got a ticket. And they're like, oh, okay, stamped it, gave it to me, waved me on through. Nobody asked for an ID. Nobody checked my bags. Nothing. Just go ahead.
A lot of things changed after that. They did.
And I got to Nashville, checked in, left, got back to the airport to come home 2 days later. Same thing. No one asked for an ID. No one checked my bags. Just, go right, terminal, da-da-da. I got on the plane. I came home. Next weekend, 9/11 happened. And all I could think about was, oh my God, that could have been me.
Yeah.
Because of the flight patterns at that time of the planes.
You never know. Sometimes you get diverted to other places. That's true.
Exactly. And that's all because I was telling people when I first got home, I can't believe nobody checked for my ID or anything. Anyone could have walked in and stole my ticket.
Yeah.
I didn't think about somebody blowing something up with a plane, but
it's just like when we found out later that these guys, they took flight training, but they didn't want to learn how to land. Well, that should have
that should have set off all the alarm bells.
All the alarm bells. And now it would, of course, but
a telltale sign there that they didn't need to know how to land it.
That's right. That's right.
In the air.
So Rose, you had some precognitive dreams. That's amazing. And I think there were a lot of people that did. Well, like Val's friend who, channeled and knew something was going to happen. I think there was a lot of that precognition. Sally says she lived in Seattle then. And she remembers going to work, and the Evergreen floating bridge was guarded by police. I bet it would have been another place that they could have possibly come.
Yeah.
But she also says that she knew one of her friend was a first responder. And so I'm hoping that your friend made it through, Sally. I don't know if that, if that would have been, there were some that did and some that didn't. A military spouse, all the active duty members were on high alert. We didn't know what. They're not going to tell you either.
And I almost forgot with the Pentagon, a good friend of my mother's, her twin brother worked at the Pentagon. And where the plane went in was literally bullseye dead center where his office was. They never found him. They never found a trace of him.
Wow.
No DNA, no nothing.
Yeah.
They said he was incinerated instantly. Just gone.
Just totally gone.
So the plane that went down before it got there, was that headed for the Capitol?
Yes, for the White House.
The White House.
Capitol or the White House, one or the other,
The Capitol or the White House. Yeah, they don't know which one.
Yeah.
That's
and they knew that, and they decided they were going to, make sure that, and nobody, I don't believe they found anything from the Shanksville, Pennsylvania crash either, because everybody was incinerated.
They found a partial ID from one of the terrorists and a couple of partial IDs from passengers that didn't burn all the way. I remember seeing something about that.
I seriously think
later on
think that Dick Cheney shot that sucker down. I've always thought that he made that decision. There's no proof, and there's no, but they're not going to tell us that, because that was
I remember that President Bush, who was in Florida, that they got on a plane in the air where he wasn't going to be in any one place.
Yes.
And he was supposed to come land at our airport here in Lafayette. And officials were like, no, we can't take his plane. We can't take a plane that size. And they had to reroute him to
I think he
further
went to
north, a little further north of
Wyoming,
with a bigger airport.
Yes, I remember that, Christine. Even myself watching people holding hands and jumping. There was also that guy from the very top. He was a cook or something, and that's called the falling man. If you've ever seen that, he was falling inverted, and they whitewashed a lot of that stuff because it was so disturbing for especially young people. Yeah, it was just too much.
I saw something before they yanked it off YouTube or wherever it was. I saw it way back when somebody who was literally in their apartment like a block away, who was filming it out their window, and we're like, somebody walked in behind them and you could hear their voices about, what's that falling out the windows? And you're like, I don't know, let me zoom in. And suddenly you saw it was people, and they were following it down, and he was like, they were flipping out.
Well, they actually, a lot of them jumped because the fire was so intense. They had
I can imagine.
Or they they probably left their bodies before they even hit the ground.
I'm sure.
This is when spirit takes you, your guardian angels take you out.
That's right.
Before and you never feel that.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly.
So for me,
there was that one guy I remember seeing that looked like he had curtains or something tied, and he was trying to like scale down the outside of one of the towers, and he was going from floor to floor, and he got like 2 or 3 floors below when whatever it was above either caught fire or whatever, and and he went at that point.
Way to go.
I remember seeing that
way to go.
Yeah.
So for me, I was living in Madisonville, Kentucky, which is a real small town. Keith was helping out in a chiropractor's office. And I got up to make coffee, and I turned the TV on, and I can see a plane going into the Twin Towers. And I think it was the second plane. And of course, we now know that there were those French guys that were doing the filming, and they got the first one as well.
Yeah, they actually have footage of it.
I've mean, we were so stunned. It was my day off. I was going to go into the school the next day. You know, it was a really tough day, but what really bothered me the most was the next day I went in, I was teaching reading at the 4th grade level to adults. That's how really bad. And I walked into the class and I said, and everybody came in and I said, this is the next day. I said, how's everybody doing? Is everybody doing okay? Is there anybody that wants to, you know, talk? And they said, oh, thank you. Yesterday we were here and our teacher just kept going and kept teaching whatever class they were doing and made nothing out of it. Said, oh, we don't want to talk about that. We're going to talk about it. And I remember how devastated these people were that they wanted to talk.
You have to acknowledge your feelings.
Their catharsis.
And you have to, absolutely, because this was traumatic for
everybody.
It was traumatic for Canada too. And I think it was traumatic for a lot of countries all over the world. A lot of people felt our shock and that feeling that we aren't safe. We aren't safe.
Well, I remember reading or seeing a film. I don't remember which it was. There was a couple of planes that were like right behind the two that like took off just before them. And then when they were immediately told, you have to land somewhere else. You can't come back. You can't go to this airport.
Right.
And one of the Canadian airports said, come here.
Newfoundland.
And they that met them at the on the tarmac and took everybody in on the plane and housed them and put them up for like a couple of days until they could get them.
Yeah, they did. Yep.
That was in Newfoundland. And and the movie that you saw was probably called Come From Away. And it's
there were so many on back then.
When it was when the planes had to land and they Gander, Newfoundland, a lot of them landed in Gander, Newfoundland. So now you've got, the population explosion from all those planes. And every single person that was close to the airport, by the airport, it was you know what? Yeah, you'll sleep on the floor, but come here. And it was taking people off the plane.
It's similar to what happened with the Titanic, if you think about it.
Yes.
There was a lot of people that did that then too.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for putting these up. I'm sorry, Shari Freeberry, that you had this as well as knowing your husband was diagnosed with stomach cancer at the time. That is a raw memory for you, I'm sure. Really and Lee Salvi, your brother was a first responder, and he said the dust was so thick. They had no mask.
It looked like nighttime.
And there are a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people got their lungs filled up with concrete because it was concrete dust.
They did.
Yeah.
And I think it was the collective trauma that we never thought we would experience, and yet we did. And thank you for sharing. I hope I got who else put up these, and thank you for sharing your memories, because it's not just our own that matter. Everybody's memories matter.
Oh, absolutely not.
But Liz, a sidebar for Liz, where you were enraged to see him and Vance at the ceremony. Why was he allowed to be there? I know. Yeah, there's a lot of people that weren't real happy that he was there. So I totally get it, Liz. Yeah, I totally get it. And it was just not. Yeah, people were covered in gray ash, and you couldn't tell the genders. That's true, Celtic seer.
You couldn't tell what race they were, what gender they were, nothing. They were just ashen bodies moving.
The one thing that it did do is a good portion of the world absolutely came to the rescue. And it wasn't a case of, oh, well, that's happening in the US, or, are you Democrat? Are you Republican? Do you believe? It was, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
What do you want me to carry? Where do you want me to go? What can I do to help? Yeah. And it just brought people together so that, I think it was almost a precursor to what's happening now in that,
in another way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know how to do this. You've done it before.
There's another video,
There's a
and you
similar
can watch it
feeling
on
in it.
YouTube where the people were flooding that were running from the buildings, falling, and ran to the shoreline, and to try to get on a ferry. And I think it was the Coast Guard put out an emergency call for any and all boats. If you're boat worthy, you can take
I remember
however
that too.
many passengers. And one of the officers on the Coast Guard boat, in an interview later, he said, I never thought in my life I would see such a thing. He said, within a minute after the call went out, I turned, he said, and there were boats of every size, shape, sail, motor, it didn't matter. They were all just rushing to the shoreline. He said, he was like, I've never seen anything like that in my life. He said it was the largest boat evacuation in history.
Sure.
And,
and a lot of people don't talk about the fact that, is it building 6? There was another building that pancaked down just
building
from
7.
Building 7.
7.
And there were and they were housing, I believe, FBI, or there was something over there. There was it was one of them was housing money, real money, like money, paper money, and it was like one of those departments. So I remember hearing about that too.
It was also where the department was housed that was doing the audit on the Pentagon for like $2 billion that was missing or something like that. There was like $2 billion missing in their budget.
I remember
and
that.
And they had like everything had been brought to this building for the experts to go through and find what happened.
Federal Reserve. Thank you. That was it. Federal Reserve.
Federal Reserve. Thank you. And it went down.
Yeah.
That one went down too, which sparked a bunch of conspiracy theories,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep. So Sally said the fallout weapons of mass destruction. She said the hunt and then war was horrific. So many people became rabid to even the score. And that unfortunately led us into a whole other horrific event that just took us it was not, it wasn't well thought out. Let's put it that way. They were just, you're right. There was a bloodlust that came from this.
Unfortunately, we allowed our government to convince us that a country that had nothing to do with it was
I didn't allow it, and I didn't believe in it. Let me just say clearly, I thought that was a big bunch of baloney.
A lot of people didn't believe it, but a lot of people
used it to go to war for the oil, and it didn't have anything to do with it. 9/11. So let's just be clear on that. That was all about the money.
Oh yeah, they just used that as an excuse to go in and take over the oil fields.
I wasn't a big Bush fan, so I have to.
Hello. I mean, Gore won. Let's check Bush's numbers. But for some reason, the gentleman that is Al Gore wouldn't do that to the country by having it go to court and all this. I would have gone for it, Al. If you would have done it, if you would have asked me, I would have told you.
Yep. That's true. Well, we have one question this week, and I wanted to make sure we had enough time to read it. But Anna says, apologies. This was, and it's all right, Anna. It doesn't matter that you put it up there a few days ago. That's perfectly fine. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know.
Absolutely.
So you're talking about a presidential pardon because he's already been to jail and all that other stuff. Is that so? That's probably what it is. So he could get his law license back, perhaps.
Probably so. Yeah.
Probably so. If he was pardoned, he probably would.
All right.
Will he be pardoned? And thank you, all of you, for being here, for spending time with us, and for sharing your stories, and for being a support system for everyone else. in here. It just goes to show you that, you know what, when we join together, we are stronger than anything you can imagine. So this is when you start to think
COVID and stuff.
Yes. Yeah. When you start to think that, no, this is too much, just remember all the little wars and battles that we've been through together and survived. And then say, I got this.
Yeah. I can't say enough about the first responders and the men that knew that they did say that they did not think that would ever come down, because it was supposed to be, it's like the Titanic. They get that, they get that hubris in them, and they don't think that this will happen.
It's exactly right, Aley. Yeah. So true.
Yeah. But the fact that they still went up into the towers to help save people was heroic. It was heroic.
It was very heroic. Lots of heroes on that day.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So who wants to go? Marina? What card you pull, hon?
Yeah. I got the nine of swords. This is no, I don't think he's going to be pardoned. At the end of the day, I appreciate the fact that he was able to see the error of his ways, and that he has turned the corner, and he has taken that lesson and learned from it and is a better person today. Will he be pardoned for the things that he did? No, because let's face it, there was criminal activity. What he did was wrong. So we can't, if the idea is that no one is above the law, then you can't make exceptions, right?
Yeah.
He was convicted. He did his time. He has paid his penance to society. Losing his law license was just one of the things that happened with that. So, kudos to him for being a better person today. But yeah, I don't think so.
So it's interesting because I got the word trust, and he put his trust in the wrong people. And that was a lesson he came here to learn. So that's what I get. Yeah. Val, what did you get?
Okay, so I got the world. And to me, for Michael Cohen, that just means he's at an end for that whole thing, because the only thing pardoning him would do is put him back in with the being able to practice law. I don't think he'd even go back to that. He already has a thriving podcast and all his other things, writing books, etc. So I don't think he's going to be on the docket even requesting that, to be honest with you. I think he knows what he did. He paid for it, and he shouldn't be practicing law, and he realizes that. So
yeah. How about you, Shari?
I pulled Saint Gabriel, which is judgment. He faced his judgment.
Wow.
He paid his fines. And if I go with the clarifier I pulled with it, it was the 7 of Cups. He's moving on. And will be successful in whatever it is he's chosen to do now. But he faced his judgment. He paid his price.
Right.
And,
right.
But he deserves a second chance to keep going with his life, and he's done that. So, good for him and good for his family.
That's right. Thank you. I'm just putting this up because it's a great idea. Psychics maybe will need to work on this cultural attack or damage to our souls. Maybe we'll trust our instincts more. But, most people would think if we said, oh, this thing is going to happen on 9/11, people would go, right, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, because we get that all the time. Not just us, but anybody that says anything like that. But we all need to really learn how to really follow our intuition. Check in with yourself. Are you feeling like today is the day that you should get on this plane? Maybe not. And really try. I think the thing that we want to make sure all you guys know in every show we have when people ask questions is make sure you trust yourself first. You are the one that knows the most about yourself, not us. We can give you a reading, but you know the answer. You just don't know, you know. So yeah, trust yourself more. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Shari's up next week. She'll be running the show. And
no, I think Marina's covering for me.
Yes,
she is.
Actually, yeah. Next week, and it was just next week and the week after that Shari and I switched.
Oh, you switched. Okay.
Yeah, but otherwise, yeah.
I'm gonna be with Michelle next week. So
yes,
and Marina switched with me. So
yeah.
Okay.
So
well, that's what
it'll
you always have fun.
Yeah, y'all come to my house. I'll have tea and crumpets ready.
Okay.
There you go. There you go. I'm in for that. I'm in for that. Yes. And everybody, just so you know, it isn't comfortable to talk about, but there is something about 9/11 that we just pause and remember. And it would be the same with Pearl Harbor that we do that, or D-Day, we do that for different days. And thank you for being with us.
There are still vets that are still alive.
They're still alive.
Even though they're quite up there who went through Pearl Harbor. That
that's
if
very
they
true.
get the opportunity, they talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
Totally.
But certainly didn't want to trigger anybody, but at the same time, we need to remember. So so thank you. Yeah. Thanks, gals.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to everyone's channel. Go down in the description of the video. You'll see everyone's channels are on there. So do your thing. And okay, that's it.
And all of us usually have our shows listed. Marina's better than all of us, but we have our little things in there, and check in and come and see us. We love having you. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, everybody in the chat.
Girls,
Thank you.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.